In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Catherine Applegate and her husband Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series book by book. I'm Eddy.
I'm Chris.
I'm Miranda.
And we're the Editors!
These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay, book 5, The Predator.
So, real quick, I've forgotten how to start a new book. How do we do it? We have a couple
we don't know.
games we
Yeah,
have to
what about our
play.
3 sentences?
I might say this every book, but I feel like
say
this
it-
is my
you-
favorite book so far.
Absolutely. 100%.
Eddie, you're saying that you 100% you have said that every book.
And I think I've agreed every time.
Same.
But like this one by a lot for me.
Yes.
Yeah, this one was
one's
a lot
really good.
It's wacky, it's gross, it's funny, has twists.
Heartwarming.
I feel like, Chris, you landed on the magic word for me of why I like it so much, at least in part, which is that Marco is a rascal. And he's
a
always been a rascal, but I
rascal.
finally see his true rascal self now.
Yes.
It's true, yeah. He's such a little rascal, and it really comes through.
Marco as a narrator is like top tier. I really enjoyed Cassie as a narrator, but I feel like we got so much of what was going on with everybody else. She's so concerned with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco is just like, here's how it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you guys get Holden Caulfield energy from him? No, I'm
No.
just kidding. No, not at all. Me either.
I like him
Not
way
even
more.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Way
agreed.
more.
Yeah,
He turns into gorillas.
Yeah.
It's true.
Gorilla in the
Marco.
Rye.
Just kidding.
If lobsters
No.
could cry, that's my
I was just-
alternative book title. I also
Oh,
think that this book might be somehow 3 different genres, at least.
That might be
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
That might be really, really true. Because it really starts off in one space, and then, you'll all see next episode.
Yeah.
Like, it's 3 distinct flavors of disaster.
Yeah, yeah. Should we do our 3-sentence summary?
All right, so here we go. 3-sentence summary. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna borrow something that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, Eddie. I'm gonna do it.
what are you gonna
ready?
do?
You know exactly what I'm
No,
gonna
I
do.
don't.
I'm a lobster. I'm an ant. I'm a space.
No,
Done.
Cheating!
that's cheating. Those are Eddie's sentences.
No, I did. I'm a
was
space
Chris's-
is Chris.
Revised version.
Fine.
I still don't agree with this, but
I can do a real one. You ready? You want a real one?
Sure.
Vigilante Marco, after saving a thankless old man, gets mixed up in a plot to acquire electronic goods from Radio Shack. And in so doing, is discovered by mall cops on Segways who are controllers, and they get Auntie Anne's pretzels and then turn into lobsters to hide. Second sentence, here we go.
A lot of that didn't happen.
I'll
Stick around to find out what.
3-sentence summary does not mean you have to hit every detail in the book, too. I would have skipped the mugging sequence, but...
Second sentence is they turn into ants and learn about the global war between 2 species of ants. Third sentence is they learn about the global war, the universal war, out in space.
Yeah.
And they go to space for the first time. And Marco learns something big. Hashtag no spoilers.
Yeah.
Hashtag I should do better.
Marco and the gang try to track down the parts to build an emergency beacon. Period. They
That's
build
so weird. I didn't get that from this book. Go on.
they build the emergency beacon so that Axe can fly away home, but instead, all of them fly away home.
Well,
Fly
kind of.
away from
From home. Yeah.
And immediately back to home.
I just was thinking of the 90s movie about the ducklings, Fly Away Home, and I couldn't...
What the hell are you talking
Is that
about?
the geese one?
Yes.
That's geese. Yeah,
little girl
and the
flies
little girl has a little ultralight plane, and she
Yeah.
flies behind the geese.
Flies
Yes.
away home,
Sure.
just like Marco.
Sure she
She
does.
does. You're right.
Okay, one sentence. Okay.
Eddie's drinking a beer. Eddie takes a sip of his beer, waiting for Miranda to come up with her sentence. Eddie looks disappointed at how long it's taking. Miranda's pissed off at Chris.
In a classic E.T. phone home maneuver, Axe, our new Andalite friend, is making a beacon to call for a Yerk spaceship to try to fly back home. Semicolon.
Nice.
No.
Nice.
Along the way, we have to morph into all sorts of crazy things. And that message may be intercepted by someone it was not intended for.
Miranda, you're very good at foreshadowing without spoiling, whereas I feel like Chris and I struggle with that a little bit more. The book begins with Marco returning to his apartment after doing some shopping at the 7-Eleven. He's anxious because it's dark out somewhere between 10 and 11 at night, and as he describes it, he and his dad don't live in the greatest neighborhood.
We pop in, Marco gets his little intro just like everybody's gotten in the, where he's like, I'm Marco, I can't tell you my last name.
But his has some steez.
He has
His
a
some
lot
style.
of pitches for what his last name could be. He's all up here. He wants to tell you his ASL, but he can't. You know what I'm saying? For your
Hungry
safety
to drop
and
that
mine.
ASL in the chat room.
Which one is our favorite?
Of the names?
I think it's Marco McCain. I mean, it just rolls off.
Oh, God.
Marco
it's
McCain
terrible.
is nicely
It does
alliterative.
not
Anyway,
matter.
I like Marco
Maverick
Vasquez.
McCain.
I think
Yeah, I
that's
like Vasquez.
got a good ring to
Marco
it.
Anderson 360.
He pulls a fast one on us. He is the first to suggest that maybe Marco isn't even his first name.
Yeah, but that's like, come on. That's just him covering his shit, right?
Yeah, no, I
Like,
think he's probably
it's like,
lying.
It's like you've been using Marco for 5 books. You want to... It's like that kindergarten lie where it's like, what if I've been lying this whole time? I could be that good.
He didn't get to chime in until now. He hasn't had a chance.
That's true.
to,
That's true.
so-
He's like, everybody calls me Marco, but what they don't know is I've been lying this whole time.
My name was never been Marco. It's always been John McCain. I've always been fully adult war hero John McCain.
Yeah.
At the 7-Eleven, what's he doing there? Is he getting a Slurpee for himself? No. He's getting groceries for his deadbeat dad. Which,
I don't know that I buy like one bottle of skim milk and peanut M&Ms as groceries.
That's what I would buy
I
if
think
you
he
send me
got
to get
sent-
A loaf of bread.
groceries.
A loaf of bread.
A loaf
Did he
of
say
bread,
okay.
low-fat milk.
I think he got sent
Of
to
the
buy bread
pyramid?
and milk, and then he bought candy.
Yeah. He's got the base of the pyramid, and then he's got the milk of the pyramid, and then he's got the tippy top. And he
Is
just listens to
low-fat
stuff in the
milk
middle.
just skim milk?
Well, there's skim milk 1%. 2% is also technically considered low-fat milk.
Really?
Half fat.
Yeah, it's reduced. And
We're
then whole...
non-dairy milk family, so I don't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we were a
also not
lactate
big-
family, too.
Yeah. You drank 2% milk for like 15 years,
It
Chris.
destroyed my GI tract. But in the same breath as like he's talking about the groceries he got, which I think they're great groceries. I think peanut M&Ms or peanut butter is a great source of protein.
Okay, there's peanut butter M&Ms and there's peanut M&Ms. They are two very different things, and I just
Yeah,
want to be
Peanuts
clear.
are even better.
They come
Peanuts
in
are even
different
better.
colored
Less
bags.
oil.
I
Less
like
oil.
the peanut butter M&Ms, and they are different than Reese's Pieces.
All right, geez, I didn't realize how controversial this was going to be. Yikes.
The M&Ms.
You know where you're from.
I'm from. I can't tell you where I'm from.
Right, we
But
can't
I'm
talk
near the biggest chocolate factory in the planet. Anyway.
In the planet.
But yeah, so he drops a really important plot beat, which is that, since his mom died, he's gotten stuck with a lot of the grocery shopping. He has to buy stuff for his dad and himself. And, as we talked about in previous books, sort of that, like, what is the exact phrase you guys use?
Parentified child. That's what
Exactly,
you've been saying.
yes, which is a critical theme in Marco's life.
Yeah, not just in this book, but in all of Marco's content. that has been a constant thread for sure.
Yeah, it comes up on his Instagram feed a lot. Wow, I've
Here's
never
just a selfie of me taking care of my dad. Like, Dad didn't get off the couch today. Here's my fit.
So when he starts to hear these voices, I like that he throws his back up against the cold brick wall of the building.
Oh, yeah. So he's
very
like
stealth
walking
video
home from
game,
the
very
7-Eleven and
Yeah.
he goes immediate Gears of War stealth, right? Yeah.
So as he's hearing these guys, he's, getting a sense of them, and he gets a quick look at them and he says it's 3 guys, each of them probably twice as big as he is. And he hits on another thing that we've seen before, which is that Marco's not that big a guy, but he's
not a big guy,
He makes up for it by being
incredibly
cute.
By being incredibly
He's just
cute.
constantly
He's so
doing the Puss in
cute.
Boots face from...
And freaking
So cute.
Rachel points it out in book 2, and she's like, not that I'd ever tell him that. And I'm like, well, bitch, apparently he knows. Like,
he's not just cute,
they got it in
he's charming,
spade.
witty, and modest, he points
Very
out.
modest.
You'd be unleashing a monster to tell him he's cute. He knows he's cute.
But he's not sure these 3 big gang members, he does say it.
He calls
he just
it
escalated
the escalate
it.
to
Members,
gang
yeah.
members.
But he doesn't
Yeah.
think they're going to be impressed by his cuteness, which I'm not convinced. I think
I'm
they
not
might be.
convinced
You never
either.
know.
If he's as cute as he says, he should get in there and just do some little dimple points. Yeah.
Why did we go gorilla with this? Why did we go for a fight? He has mentioned before stupid pet tricks.
Oh, he could have been
could've
like
gone-
a flipping dog.
They would have been like, we can't beat this old man
this
to
old
death
man with
over
this little dog.
$5.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because later on, like when they're like, whoa, somebody hit this monkey when the gang members and them are fighting, like he's like, monkey? You're calling me a monkey? I'll show you a monkey. I just imagine him turning into one of those like really tiny cute little monkeys.
Like a
Like
capuchin.
Curious Storage.
Yeah.
He's got shorts on or whatever. Like,
Or like a boo from
He's got his little morphing outfit
from
on.
Aladdin. Yeah.
As we're morphing, he has a couple thoughts, some thoughts about what it's like to morph into a gorilla. A lot of stuff we've heard before. He says it's nice to keep his arms and legs in his like general humanoid shape.
I think in terms of the morphs we've seen so far, I think this is one of the least impressive, but we do get when Marco's shoulders grow so massive, we learned that it was like having a couple of pigs sitting on my back, which I think is the best unit of measurement.
That was a helpful measurement. Like,
Yeah.
I know what 2 pigs on my back would be.
You know? Yeah, no, I'm familiar with 30 to 50 feral hogs in my yard,
Yeah. So Gorilla Marco throws a dumpster at the wall to get their attention. He tries to scare them off, but it doesn't quite work, so they fight instead. The muggers attack him first with a knife, and then a gun. And he gets slashed a few times.
I think he gets shot.
I think he gets hit.
No.
He definitely
not
gets
even
slashed.
no.
I don't know if he gets shot.
He gets slashed. He didn't get shot. So let's jump back in where we were. And I decided to teach those guys a little lesson. What's your note there, Miranda?
Oh, my note on I decided to teach those guys a little lesson is so we've gone from the totally reasonable defending an old man to the much less justifiable needed to teach those guys a lesson, and not even a big lesson.
Yeah,
A
not
little
even a big-
lesson.
A little lesson. Yeah. And then he talks about like he's doing the morph into the gorilla and he's like talking about how much stronger it is, and he explains this in a very unintuitive way to me. He's just like, how strong? Let me put it this way. Compared to a gorilla, a human being is made out of toothpicks. I wasn't just twice as strong. I was maybe 4, 5, or 6 times stronger. And I
Not
was like,
even
why don't you start
4, 5,
5,
6 times stronger. Pick
Which-
one.
Yeah, exactly, right. But it's also like, why not start with that part of the estimation and then give an example of it?
Compared to a gorilla, a human being was a 6th grade balsa wood bridge.
That's why I feel like they just felt like they needed an introduction scene here, because I don't think we get those little details like we do in the other books.
It's true. One of my favorite things about him specifically saying 4, 5, and 6 is like one time a friend of mine, my friend Keith, I'll give credit where credit's due. We were like sitting around and he was singing
Keith
Blowing
McCain.
in the Wind. Keith McCain. Keith McCain. Yes,
Keith
of course. I
McCain,
can't
yeah.
tell you his last name, right. Keith Vasquez. But Keith was singing Blowing in the Wind, and, it's 3 questions, right? In a row, like, how many roads was I walk down? And it does the 3 questions, and the answer my friends is 4, 5, and 6 respectively. The answer is 4, 5, and 6 respectively. And I think I just about lost it. It melted my brain that he had finally solved Mr. Robert Zimmerman's riddle. That he had figured it out. And the answer, my friends.
So yeah, during this kerfuffle, he sees a knife and someone actually slashes him, and he makes
He says the knife glittered? Like it was bedazzled? Like it had sequins on it?
In the moonlight.
So I'm guessing this is...
It's reflecting
in the moonlight.
Chris.
I think, no, but like glittered. Different than the glint of a blade.
Okay, maybe it's starlight,
like,
then it's...
I just think this might be kind of a fresh and funky little gang, you know?
Anyway, he's throwing these guys around like nobody's freaking business. And he's like, I had no intention of killing anyone. And I'm like, you could have fooled me, dude. And he's like, he looks over at him and he's like, man, he's not breathing real well, but I figured he'd survive. And I'm like, that's a really cavalier attitude for someone who's not trying to kill anyone. Like,
yeah, he hit the wall and dropped, I think leaves a lot of room for how much damage was caused there. But because they don't get up again. They stay down.
Yeah, they don't. They stay. They very much just stay down. I also just like imagining this gorilla like reaching down to check their pulse, like just taking it like a nurse, grabbing the wrist and just like, good, still alive. All right, I'm not a murderer today.
So he definitely gets shot.
Well, then he hears the gun, and the gun gets fired.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually say that he gets shot.
They're not far from each other at this point, right?
And a gorilla's a pretty big target. It would be impressive to miss.
It doesn't say they were warning shots.
He sort of says he's scared of the gun, though. He's like...
And then it's loud.
But he doesn't say anything about being hit.
Yeah, and then the blamf is like so much for the guy with the gun. He refers to like each of the people by the weapons they have. I don't know if he talks about the first guy he just
knife
kills.
Guy, yeah.
But there's knife guy and there's gun guy, and I just like the idea of like, he's a total knife guy. I don't know. It's like...
So after all of the people mugging the old man are knocked unconscious or killed, we're not sure.
He seems to think they're alive.
Of course, that's his story.
Marco turns around in his gorilla morph, and the old man is standing there, the one he had risked his life to save, and he's shaking, red in the face, and he's got a gun pointed at Marco. And he calls him a demon.
He does.
He does.
Marco's really upset about this. You know, he thought he was going to get out of this, go home, watch Letterman. He says that.
It like really seems to spoil his night. And it starts to change the tone of the previous interaction. I'm starting to think, why didn't this old man give them more money?
Did he have a plan all along?
Yeah, like maybe the old man was the bad guy.
Chris.
I don't know. What?
Are we the baddies?
I think we might be the baddies.
So the next day, Marco is recounting this story
Recountifying. Sorry to correct you.
to his friends. In a field on Cassie's property, Rachel's doing some handsprings, Tobias is soaring overhead, and Marco gives us his little insights on the whole team. You know, we got Marco's little, I'm super cute and adorable and fantastic, but now we get to see what he thinks of everybody else. And we also find out the tragic fate of the low-fat milk in the M&Ms, which is that unfortunately they were left behind.
Went to waste. The one thing we do learn about him and all of his friends is he seems to think all of his friends are incredibly attractive. That's the one thing I walked away
not
with.
Tobias.
Tobias, he doesn't remember what Tobias looked like.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it as we work through it.
But,
yeah, the repressing. Right. Yeah, exactly. He's pushing it down. He's like, I barely remember what Tobias looked like.
Let me tell you something. Bi panic is real.
I don't think that Marco is into Jake, actually. I thought they were very neutral, sensible brown hair, trustworthy brown eyes, and a confident, maybe the chin, confident
Let
chin.
me tell you, these descriptions he has of Jake are the descriptions Jake wishes he had of Rachel.
Yes.
These
exactly.
are the
cousinly. They're cousinly.
Yes, exactly. They're very cousinly. In fact, it's very appropriate. And well done, Marco.
But he also says that Jake has a great sense of humor.
Yes.
Which I haven't seen.
Controversial opinion, I think.
Yeah. I haven't seen zero evidence of that.
Miranda, I want to ask about the gymnastics reference we get here. It really is only one line, but Rachel doing a front handspring as we walked across the springy grass. Is this believable?
Yeah.
Is this,
You totally do a front handspring on the grass. I don't know why the grass is springy, but
to help push her along.
That's rude. If somebody's like talking to you and you just do like a chill front handspring or whatever, it's like, you're not listening.
It's Rachel's form of walking.
If it's as natural to her as walking, I'm here for it.
yeah, if
then.
it's as
She's-
natural as walking is, she really undersold her balance beam skills because apparently she just falls off the beam all the time. She's a
here's the
power
thing.
tumbler, I guess.
Yeah, I want to see that on the spectrum of like the control top, power bottom, power tumbler.
So Marco's telling them about this incident.
We find out that everybody in the group apparently knows about the whole Cassie Jake thing and knows that they don't want people to know.
Yeah.
He has a really cute little thing about how he and Cassie are really different. He says, if I'm comedy, she's poetry.
Which is kind of beautiful. That's actually like weirdly insightful.
Yeah, I love this anecdote we get about Marco going to her barn at some point, and she's got her arm halfway down the throat of a wolf, like giving it the wolf pills or something.
Yeah.
And just smiling and acting like it's no big deal. And the wolf is standing there trying to act like it's the best little boy in school. I love that little.
I love that.
Earn its gold star.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And then we get Rachel.
I really love, he goes on the very beautiful, like a supermodel, all that.
I wish she was my cousin.
But we get Ms. Properly applied makeup. And that just feels like Marco had a
Knows
mishap
a little
once.
bit too much.
Yeah.
Yes, that's such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
he's explored
oh yeah,
makeup.
she can put her makeup on correctly, I'm sorry,
yeah.
we can't all know where the blush goes on the apples of our cheeks. Like,
I show up to picture day and everyone says I look like the Joker.
And also Rachel, if she could, Marco thinks Rachel would be wearing a suit of armor and swinging a sword. This is your moment.
Sword
Chris.
lesbian.
Sword
And it would be a
lesbian.
fashionable
Sword
suit of
lesbian.
armor, and she would look great in it.
Exactly. Sword lesbian. That's what I'm saying.
And then I don't feel like we get almost anything about Tobias.
yeah, it
That's 'cause
says
he
then
thinks
there's
he's hot.
Tobias.
Yeah, no.
He liked Jake because Jake stopped him from getting beaten up, and we don't remember what he used to look like. Now he's a bird. That's it.
I thought
Tobias's
like the
intro.
reason why did you get Jelly vibes from like he likes Jake because Jake once kept some guys from beating him up and he's just like, why are Tobias and Jake better friends than me and Jake? Like
Wishes
that's
he could have turned into a gorilla to save
Tobias. Well, do you think he wants to be closer to
See-
Tobias or Jake?
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like he thinks Tobias was kind of like a third wheel, like tag along kind of kid.
Like Jake was gonna pop the question and Tobias came along and everything changed.
Yeah.
They had something stable, maybe not exciting, but good.
Right.
Yeah. Now
know,
Tobias
like
is
the
living in a drawer in Jake's attic. Marco's small enough to fit into a drawer, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Marco's like, I'm cute and small. I'll get in the drawer. You can leave Letterman on the radio, on the little portable
radio.
television. Yeah, on the portable television.
Can you just record it for me?
Can
I
you
only
tape
need
it for me? I know you don't have a DVR.
We do get this little moment where Marco says, I tease Tobias sometimes. Line break. What happened to him scares me. And I like that. I like the ongoing thing that Tobias kind of represents the level, like a level of threat for Marco.
Yeah.
So we get our intro to the Yeerks again. We always get an intro to the Yeerks. We learn about the human controllers we've met, Tom, Jake's brother, and the Chapmans.
Dead-eyed Melissa.
They met an Andalite who was dying of wounds.
Wounds.
And,
Dying of wounds?
I guess they don't actually say how Prince Elfangor got wounded, do they? So he's just dying of wounds.
yeah. I mean, it says he's dying of wounds he's sustained fighting the Yeerks, but I just really like the phrase dying of wounds.
Yeah, and like this is the obligatory, that dying alien who we watched die at the hands of Visser 3 was the one who gave us our ability to turn into aminals. And he explains the hierarchy of the Yeerk allies, which is to say that the Yeerks have totally overthrown the Hork-Bajir and are in total control of them. And yet the Hork-Bajir are an unwillingly controlled species, and they actually used to be quite gentle, despite looking like a Cutco commercial. And then their creepier, more evil allies, the Taxxons, which look like cute little caterpillars singing opera.
Oh,
with their perfectly round
And I
mouths.
think because we've now gone through every narrator, I'm hoping this is the last time we have to review everything we've
really
learned.
fucking hope so.
After we get all our intros to everybody, we loop back into the conversation we had been having, and people point out to Marco that it's kind of hypocritical that he went and saved this guy when he had blasted Tobias and Rachel for saving Price Capali, who is admittedly a bird.
Yes.
But he also blasted Rachel for morphing partway into an elephant to defend herself back in book 2.
Yeah,
So,
you're
like-
right about that.
Is Marco evolving and becoming more curious?
That's what Miranda wants to know.
Yeah.
Is he actually going to change?
Yeah.
With what we learn in this book. I think, because this is kind of Marco's why I fight moment, I feel like he will
Wait, are you
change.
saying you read ahead? I'm reading this as we go. I will say this. The only criminal activity that was happening at that used car lot, as far as I'm aware, were the criminally low car prices.
God damn.
Like, I'm just saying,
I
that's
knew you were
the
gonna
only...
fucking say it.
I didn't. I wish I had known, so I could have looked
There were
away,
a lot of
but-
steals going on in that
There
lot,
were a
if you
lot
know
of
what I
steals
mean.
there, okay?
So we learn why they're there in the field. It's to see Axe, who they rescued from the sunken ship.
Oh, come on, say his full name. It's so beautiful.
Okay, I have to flip to it. Axmili Esgaruth Istil.
Which Marco remembers.
Yes, I was so impressed. He has it written on a note card.
I don't know.
somewhere.
Yeah, like he's been doodling it on his notebooks for sure. He remembers
Yeah, with
everything
hearts.
this Andalite has ever said to him.
So we learned that Cassie and Jake have been hanging out with Axe independent of the group,
Throuple.
looping Axe into their dates, and that Axe would like to go home. He wants to go back to the Andalite home.
Hey guys, going on dates with you guys is cool and all,
It's-
but I kind of want to stay in tonight.
Yeah,
I think, like,
I
you
really
guys wanna go to
appreciate you
movies
guys
together.
including me and everything, but I'm really starting to feel like you guys are gross. So, like,
Do you think they take turns? And maybe this is offensive to Andalites. I don't
Making
know.
out?
No, riding Axe.
Oh.
Do you think that's inappropriate for Andalites?
do you think so? Like, I've always thought about this, right?
Animorphs?
I've always thought about this, right?
Trying to incite a
When
riot?
you ride a centaur, okay, so which an Andalite is essentially a centaur, except they might be a little too small, they might be a little too small, but I've always thought, when you ride a centaur, do you wrap your arms around their torso like you're riding on a motorcycle?
I think
Or-
so.
The answer is obviously, but
No,
what
no.
are you trying to do?
No. There's a certain type of like dad
Can you put reins on a
who
centaur?
just sticks his hands
Is
on
it-
the back and holds on like this. That's how the dads.
God, I apologize to the entire half of our Animorphs.
Chris,
that
this is
already
your
hates
problem.
Wait a
us.
minute.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
like-
Chris, think of the possibilities. Think of the possibilities. You could ride into a situation together, back to back, arms crossed.
Whoa, that looks good.
Yeah.
That looks good. That actually, it's really intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really intimidating. You could like take a picture. You could be like lawyers together and be like, like
it's, like,
injury
waist
lawyers
up
or
and
whatever,
everybody
and
thinks-
it's waist up. And then when you show up to the court, you like ride him back to back, and you look exactly like the picture. Yeah.
The Andalite
okay,
rides-
all right, you sold me.
The
All right,
Andalite
there's
comes
nothing
in,
untoward about
turns
it. Yeah.
around, and you're on his back.
So you would ride an Andalite, Chris. That's what you're saying.
I am not going to say that. I'm not saying that. I would never say that because I know what the fucking edit's going to be when you upload it. It's not going to be the 3 minutes of context before it. Yeah, social media guy. Yeah, I'm not going to. You can't get
We'll just
me on
take that.
tape
We'll say
saying,
on this week's episode, we asked a tough question.
Chris will ride an Andalite.
Damn,
Gun
is
to your
that
head,
the title
Chris.
now?
Would you ride?
Oh my god. Oh man. Oh god. We learned that Axe wants to go home and they ask, well, where the fuck's home then? And he says, well, the Andalite homeworld is about 82 light years away.
Marco is really, really concerned about how far a light year is and how many light years you would have
I
to
do
travel.
want to say that this is a very 90s thing because he says light travels about 186,000 miles per second. I have that bored into my skull. Like, I know
Yeah.
that number.
I don't.
You
I
didn't
don't
watch
know,
enough
we had a
Magic School
science
Bus,
dad.
Eddie.
Yeah, Magic School Bus. They just
Yeah.
blurted out.
So Axe shows up. And
Yeah, no one's happy about it.
No, I think
Oh, sorry.
Marco's
Rachel and
very
Cassie
happy.
are really happy about it. Oh, right. Marco's really.
Yeah.
Right,
But
'cause
we
you
missed
just-
one thing before Axe shows up. We missed one thing before Axe shows up. And that thing is that Marco's going on and on about how far it is. He's like, this, light travels this far in a second. That's, times 60 for an hour, times 24, times a year. Like, that's a light year.
Times 60 for a minute, times 60 for an hour, times 24 for a day.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. No, yes, thank you. But, that's how far we're talking about it. We can't do it. And Jake's like, that's why we have to steal a Yerk spaceship.
We have to do a steal. We have to get our grubby hands on a little Yerk spaceship.
That becomes the big mission of the book. It's like a matter of like how they're going to do it.
And
It's
then
true.
Axe does finally arrive to the meeting. And we get a description of Andalites, and it is immediately obvious that Marco has a crush on Axe.
Yeah, and it's like, and he tries to play it off. He's like, from a distance, you would think it's just a small horse of deer. He talks about all the normal
I want to talk about that real
things.
quick, because doesn't it look like there's
I
a
had the
man
same thought.
sitting
Yes.
on the head
Yes.
of this deer?
Also, it's blue, and I think
It's blue. He neglected the blue.
also the
blue.
tentacle eyes. Sorry, that's just also
And then he, of course, has to mention the tail.
Thick
the tail.
tail.
Which they've all introduced the tail the exact same way.
So we get a good line about Marco saying that Cassie and Rachel have said that Axe is cute, but he wouldn't know because he's a guy, which, sure, Marco. But then he's remembering Elfangor using the tail in his, their meeting. And then he says that memory came back to me as I watched Axe galloping toward us, tail arched and ready.
Yes.
And I just have a note that says he ran over to us, fully erect. And
It is really the vibe of the description, though. There's a debate about the plan to steal the Yerk ship. Marco thinks that the plan is too dangerous. Axe believes the danger makes the plan honorable and therefore worth doing. Jake points out that that's dumb and that they have to consider more than just honor of the act. As far as they know, they are the only people resisting the Yerks on the planet, and so the Animorphs need to stay alive, more than most humans, Eddy would say.
yeah, Axe is definitely like honor hungry, it seems to be raised in some sort of warrior culture. I don't know if the whole culture,
Which is
but
making me pretty skeptical
I know.
about these animals.
But his brother at least was a warrior, and so he idolizes his big brother.
His big bro, not his cousins.
And so Axe is all about it, and Marco's like, "Hey, we're trying to not die," and Axe is like, "Huh?
Yeah,
What?"
and Marco, as I feel like he's been in a couple books now, he's very comfortable expressing the fact that he's scared about everything that's going on. He's the most reluctant Animorph, and so that kind of creates this friction between him and Axe, because even though we know that Axe is afraid because he was scared when they encountered Visser 3 in the last book, he's not willing to express that. He wants to
I think also Axe actually doesn't know he's as afraid as he is until he's confronted with it, because there's a moment where Marco is like, yeah, how many Hork-Bajir have you fought? And he's like, well, none. And then as Marco is describing it, he's like, oh, much like he was in book 4, where he was very gung-ho about getting to fight, maybe because he's repressing it, because it's not considered appropriate in his culture.
Fear is unworthy of a warrior. Page 22.
Despite being the Andalite in the group, he's the least experienced of all. He seems sheltered.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which is I think evidenced by what this plan actually is. Just to get into the details of the plan of committing the Grand Theft Auto.
Yes,
is
as Axe will, this is the scene where Axe explains that he actually does have a way to steal a Yerk ship.
Right, because Marco's like, what are we going to do? Just call him and be like, hey, pick us up? And then Axe is like, actually, yeah. He says, we can use it's a Z-space beacon?
No, it's a Z-space
The
transponder.
The Z-space transponder is part of the beacon that he says he's going to make.
It's a distress beacon, though. It's a Yerk distress beacon. That's what he calls it.
And then the idea is to lure them down with that, saying they're a Yerk ship in trouble, and then they're going to jump the people flying the bug fighter.
The Hork-Bajir and the
Yerk ship
Taxxon.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, they always say there's always at least one Hork-Bajir and one Taxxon. There's a diversity requirement.
The two genders. This plan is they're going to have to get to murdering super quick. More quick than they've ever expressed being comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess they killed a bunch of Taxxon in the last book.
They did.
Yeah.
They exploded them.
I'm not sure we've seen them kill a Hork-Bajir.
I think Rachel might pick one up and throw some.
Yeah. Rachel kind of kills
In the first
indiscriminately.
book. In
It's
the
hard
first
to
book.
tell.
In the first book, yeah. There's a lot of killing in the
She'll
first
kill
book that we
anybody.
don't see directly.
And it's specifically to Hork-Bajir that Marco brings up. How many times have you fought a Hork-Bajir? He asks Axe. And Axe's stalk eyes drooped and he pawed the ground with one hoof.
Yeah, the drooping
Never, he said.
Never.
And Marco says,
I wanted to.
I thought so. So let me tell you something, Axe. It's scary. It's so scary that sometimes you wish you could just go ahead and die because it's easier than dealing with the terror. And then he thinks that killed everyone's happy mood.
Yeah, the vibe's over.
Oh, speaking of vibe, this is the one thing that Marco likes about Axe. Is that he hates Visser 3. And every time he says Yerk or Visser 3, you could just feel the air vibrating from his anger or also Prince.
Throbbing. Yeah.
Which I loved. And I think Marco's picking up something else, but...
That's what that tension is. But Axe does say that he thinks he might be able to get the Andalites here faster if he gets back home. So there is a point to sending him back.
I really hate that argument. Like, it's like such a risk. And if he's sure they're coming, because he says, I'm sure they're coming either way.
The first step of our mission to build this distress beacon is to go get all the parts we need from the local Radio Shack at the mall, because that's where you get those.
For some reason, it's decided quickly that it will be Jake, Marco, and Axe who go to the mall.
Yes. And Axe will have to morph human. Now that makes sense that Axe is going to have to go, right? He knows what they need.
Yeah. And they're going to catch the bus from Cassie's barn to go to the mall where they're going to go to this Radio Shack.
What's the name of that road we need?
Margolis Avenue.
That's going to be critical. Oh, a bunch of shit is going to go down on Margolis Avenue.
Yeah. The window is very tight for like how long Axe can do this. So he has to morph at the barn and needs to be able to make it back, basically.
Yeah,
It's 2
it
hours.
does.
They timed it out
It
based
does
on bus schedules.
seem that the bus ride is kind of long.
Pre-internet bus schedules. There's no GPS data. This is just what's written in the little packet.
We have a moment I'm so excited to get to here, which is Axe can morph into a human that already has clothes. Where do
Yeah,
the
what is
clothes
that?
come from? Does he store
is,
them in the
is
morph?
Is fashion a part of your
Does
DNA?
he store them? Oh my God, do Andalites have special organs for storing
Oh my
things
God,
to wear
like
during
clothes
morphs?
bladders?
Yeah,
Clothes
clothes
bladders?
bladder.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that's the fucking solution. That's the next level solution, Miranda. That's brilliant. I want to see them morphing, and it's like, what do we do with our shoes? I put it in my colon. Like, I morph the shoe into the animal's colon because it's a horse. You're
Yeah, I'm only
going to
be in it for 2 hours. I don't
2
need to
hours,
poop.
and
Like,
a horse can easily store a
Cow's
shoe
got
in
4
its colon.
stomachs. You can use one of them for something.
One of those stomachs for one shoe and another for another. You're not doing important digestion this way.
Does Axe morph into a human? He puts clothes on, and then he morphs back to Andalite, and now they're stored? Or do you think he can just
that's what I
assemble?
think.
Okay.
No, I think that's how he had to do it.
Okay, so he is storing the clothes somewhere in his...
You know what's so
I have
funny,
absorbed
though?
the
Not
DNA of
of the
cotton.
clothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can now sew.
Render it in all forms.
So we get into this morph. It's pretty new for us. It's only our second time seeing Axe morph and seeing like a friendly Andalite morph and getting to focus on it. So getting to see the idea of not a human becoming an animal, but something else becoming a human.
It almost like puts us on the same tier for a second. Like somebody's having the same experience they're having with cats and dogs where they have to fight off the urges and whatever. It's like now Axe is similarly experiencing some sort of primordial human brain.
Well, yeah, and he as his front legs come up, he falls forward. Jake has to catch him. I think this is
romantic.
where Eddy started writing Marco Axe
did we
fan
miss-
fiction.
Did we miss any of your beautiful fanfic? Because it's incredible.
I think this was the first one. This is also our first all twos moment, as Chris named it.
All
It's
twos.
the reverse all fours.
There's a moment in here that is I don't have a way to describe it other than weirdly vaginal.
Yep.
Oh my God. You're reading my stupid mind.
Yeah.
It says a gash opened in his face and grew lips
Yep.
and teeth. And it just
It just is.
Yeah, dude.
It
Yeah,
just
it
is.
just is.
Yeah.
It just is.
But
It
this
just
is important because we have to note this because it's also... Oh, maybe this is where mouths start getting weird in this book.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I just found Eddie's fanfic.
So when Axe's legs reabsorb, Jake is the one that catches him in the book, but Eddy has written an alternate series of events.
Yeah, so maybe it's Marco.
That says, "I've got him, Jake," I said, cradling Axe in my arms. I blushed. I didn't know why I said it. The words just came out of my mouth.
Just the tension's already there in the room.
And
So
then,
romantic.
as we get the description that Axe's human morph is a mixture of all of them, it says Axe was male. And the note we have from Eddy, Eddy, would you like to read your note?
Yeah, do you want to do
From the
Marco
author-
or
from the
Axe
author
here?
himself.
I'll do the other.
Okay. Boys don't kiss other boys, I told Axe. It's just not right. My face was close to his mouthless face. Too close.
I don't understand, Marco. On the Andalite homeworld, the love between two male Andalites is one of the highest forms of love.
My mouth grew even closer to where his mouth would have been. Not on our planet. It never happens.
Never? Axe asked. I love love. I love love. I think
The
it's so
love
beautiful.
between two male Andalites is one of the highest forms
form of love.
love.
It leveled up mid-sentence.
So yeah, Marco says, Axe, you could either be a really pretty guy or a kind of unattractive girl. Only kind of.
Nice nag, Marco. Nice nag,
But it
Marco.
also shows that he has different ideas of what's attractive on a man and a woman, as is common. You know, you don't want the same things in all people. You know, that'd be Well, variety is the spice of life. After the description of how his mouth morphed, we really shouldn't be surprised that Axe's mouth is a central focus.
Yes.
It really is. It's really going to be the locus of this whole section.
He just
is what comes in and out of it.
He continues to make strange noises with his mouth because he's not used to having one. It's very cute. It's the same thing he did at the end of book 4, and he keeps doing
But now
it.
we have to live with it for like 3 chapters.
Yeah, one of the things he says is because they tell him to put the shoes on his feet, they don't go in his pockets. And he says, "Yes, I remember. Member." Come on.
I thought the same thing. I didn't make a note, but I started just marking like Marco blushed, and I feel like that's a Marco
you did.
blush moment.
It was non-stop.
Yeah, no, there's
It was-
another one that comes up right after he gets his sense of taste. I think he says, "I would like to try more mouth things," and then it says, he cocked his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
God.
this juxtaposition is unreal. They go into the mall.
The mall was a zoo.
Yeah, I
by the
know.
way.
That
Did you
description's
catch
so
that?
cute. Almost immediately, human morphed Axe is just gone. He's taken off up
Yeah.
an escalator.
Yeah, like literally they walk in and they say, "Where's the Radio Shack again?" Which, by the way, is what I said every single time I went to a mall in my middle school days.
So Marco has a strange reaction to being in the mall, which I feel like I don't know where this comes from. He says, "Bodies everywhere. All I saw were bodies. Men, women, boys, girls, babies, but no
Babies.
aliens." And I just felt like that was strange, a strange reaction.
Yeah,
from-
it's very unhuman.
Yes.
think?
It's very,
I don't.
it's very like,
I think people lose their humanity in a crowd in a way that makes me claustrophobic and specifically see them as meat sacks. I'm like,
Well, it's
if
good.
any
Yeah,
more of
that's
this
real.
meat gets any closer to me, I'm gonna throw up. Like, it's
yeah, that
so
makes
awful.
sense. It's funny, they were discussing like how is Axe gonna lay low in this mall environment? Like if he's making weird mouth noises the entire bus ride over, and then he gets to the mall and he just doesn't know any of the social cues and he's just bumping into people he can barely walk. Like they discussed this beforehand. Like Rachel and Marco were talking about this, and they were like, it's okay. It'll be a Saturday morning. The mall's always full of weird people. This had another little bit of like Eddy writing sample, which was from Marco's perspective. It'll be full of queer people. I blushed. I meant weird people. Rachel laughed. Did you just say queer people? Fuck off, Rachel! God, she just made me so mad sometimes.
I missed that.
Where was that? Did I
This
miss
is page
that?
28.
Oh,
this
okay.
is the end of the last chapter.
They find Axe in a Starbucks ordering
Yes.
a double latte.
Caffeinate the boy.
Double bulbul latte AA. He's just doing his thing.
Calf.
So, but Axe successfully orders a coffee.
Which is more than I can do at a Starbucks.
Yeah. The other thing that Axe can do in this scene that I think is really impressive is patiently stand in a line.
No, I don't have that skill anymore.
I don't think anybody does. He cues very politely.
Very politely.
And then he is utterly bowled over by sippy lids.
The little hole
Yeah.
in the lid, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. What the hell is that? He's talking about how, like, in the other book, he's talking about how, like, we have a name for where the water comes together in a lake and
Yeah, but they don't
touches
have
the
mouths.
land.
They don't have mouths. Yeah, this was the coolest thing Axe had ever seen. I guess coffee cup technology hasn't advanced very far on the Andalite homeworld, probably because they don't have mouths, and so drinking is not a big concern. But whatever the reason, Axe wouldn't shut up about it. So simple, and yet so effective.
I have wanted to try other mouth uses.
Yeah.
Drinking, eating.
It's like ASMR for Marco. He's like, stop it, Axe. Just line the little hole up with your mouth.
I know! Come on! Right?
But then they also said they leave for Radio Shack, and it says they hemmed Axe in and herded him.
The two of us hemmed and herded.
Yeah. But Axe, as they're going, is still perplexed by the coffee. He experiences taste for the first time, he says.
A new sense.
Yeah.
I cannot explain it. It comes from this mouth. He pointed at his mouth. It happened when I drank this liquid. It was pleasant. Very pleasant.
Oh, no! This is the first time I think I put Marco blushed.
The moon face.
Marco blushed, yeah.
It took a few seconds for Jake and me to realize what he was talking about. Oh, taste. He's tasting it, Jake said, which just is a next level.
Taste. He's tasting it.
He's experiencing something very different than Marco.
It sounds like a children's television show type of thing. It's like,
I feel it.
I feel the cosmos. I had that feeling too. But like, it's like you see the baby put food in his mouth and the mom on screen goes, oh, taste. He's tasting it. Taste, taste, taste. That's what we do with food. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
they do kind of infantilize Axe in this book, even though he's also like, it's funny because he's also kind of guiding them because he's from the most technologically advanced people.
Yeah,
but
he's going to get them all the best deal on new cell phones and Radio Shack.
Yeah. We make it to Radio Shack and Axe immediately starts, looking for what he needs.
This section is my favorite.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because you guys were really hitting the jargon, the silly jargon hard. You were like, oh, this is a primitive Gertmoth, and this could be a sort of fleer. But here's what I want to know. Why does he have sounds for these things? If it's a thought-based language, I understand for humans that translates as sound in their head, and so unfamiliar words would translate as like garbled sounds.
This is a good point.
For a completely thought-based language, why would he morph into a human and know what sound to make with his mouth? Yeah. As a telepathic language, I mean, they must have some form of written language too, right? So there's a way to write these things down, but that doesn't mean that there would be sounds tied to them. If they can't make sound, there's no reason the language would be phonetic in any way.
Yeah, this is,
that's
when
like
we
my
get
biggest,
KA,
that's my
when
biggest
we get our white whale
problem so far, actually, with the books. Like, I don't think that makes any sense at all.
So I want to hear what you two, because I know you both have been looking forward to Z-Space too.
Z-Space!
Well, I want to get to Z-Space.
We're here!
I want to say about the thing, though, like, they do the Gertmoth, and then they say, and this could be a sort of fleer? Very primitive, but it will work, I guess. And I just want to say, like, first of all, like, they're knocking our fleers, and yet our lids are blowing their minds.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like, our fleers are good enough. You can go to any Radio Shack and get a fleer for, like, 99 cents. And you know that fleer is going to last 10,000 uses. Anyway, all right, I just, like, that pissed me off. Don't knock our fleers, okay?
After gathering all the items at the Radio Shack, he's like, oh, the only thing I need now is a Z-Space transponder. And they're like, what? And he's like, it translates the signal into zero space. And this is when we finally get our definition of zero space, of Z-Space.
Which I thought was just going to be Charlie XCX's newest album. That's what I assumed Z-Space would be.
Axe says,
but it is indeed
zero space. The opposite of true space, anti-reality.
makes no sense. You can't have anti-reality in a real way. It doesn't
Zero
work
space.
that way.
The non-dimension, where faster than light travel is possible.
I have no idea how well this would work, but we don't know anything about Z space or zero space. Could Axe be storing his clothing in Z space?
In Z-space! Well, he doesn't have a
I feel
Z-space
like
transponder, so how would he do
would
it?
need some hardware to do that.
Because
Otherwise,
it doesn't sound
yeah.
like Andalites naturally have some sort of like magic Z-space capability. Although we could find that out, I don't know.
I just don't know where he's storing the shoes. I mean, the shoe bladder. We pointed that out, I guess.
Yeah, Axe chugs his
Capricorn's
coffee and then he says, "This bitch empty." Yeet! Because Marco tells him he can chuck it.
Axe is like, do I have to keep holding this coffee cup? My hands are tired. My
little human
are tired.
hands.
My hands are so soft and this cup is hurting them so bad.
So Marco tells him to throw it away, and Axe yeets it at the cashier, and then their excuse is basically that Axe has Tourette's, but they don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
And then as they're apologizing to
Axe
the
wanders
cashier that Axe hit with a cup and paying
off
for the
his
stuff,
tits, man.
Yeah, he's like, well,
He's
whatever.
high as shit.
He left.
Axe chugged that coffee in a Radio Shack and saw all the bright, colorful capacitors, and his brain just exploded.
And I think from this point forward, the book picks up a lot for like...
It does.
It really flies.
Yeah.
There's really not a whole lot to say. I mean, there's a crazy chase. They go downstairs.
It's a lot like Heavy Rain when the guy's looking for his son and going,
Jason!
Jason.
Jason!
Yes, Jason.
Yeah.
Sean!
They're chasing after Axe, and they run down the escalator, and they find him in the food court eating random leftovers of food, which, like, we've all thought about it. We've all been hungry at the mall.
He saw a Cinnabon, he shoved it in his mouth, he screamed about how good it tasted, and that was the smell that had brought him here, and like saying...
To this planet.
Yeah.
He said to this planet. He said he smelled it.
That's
in
what
Z
Andalites.
space. Yeah,
Same dude. Same.
I remember this moment as a kid, and I had never tried Cinnabon before, and I really wanted to try Cinnabon after this, and it didn't hold up to Axe's hype.
Really?
It didn't.
You think?
No.
No.
It really...
I mean, it's still
No,
just
I
a really
don't-
good cinnamon bun.
I don't
It's
even
not
think
like...
sticky buns are as
Get
good.
out.
Like even a really... No, listen to me.
Anyway.
I don't think... I feel like Axe makes too big of a switch here from... He was so good, like we were talking about already, he stood in line, he was able to copy everyone, and now he's
Yeah,
just
but he
eating
wasn't-
pizza in the
But then
food
he
court.
discovered
wasn't
the
fucking
human
high on
capacity for
cocaine.
desire.
He screamed,
Yes.
taste!
Taste! Taste! He threw the rest of the
Frankenstein's
pizza
monster.
He's
through
really
the air.
fucked up.
Yeah,
Because
he is.
he's now
Super
learned that
fucked
when
up.
he's done with something, he can simply throw it.
As per
True.
Marco's
True,
instructions.
he was taught that. But he's going,
God.
taste, wonderful, full.
And he's freaking out all the poor little humans, the puny little humans around him.
And this just
And,
becomes a disaster situation.
Gets chased
does.
by
They-
mall
they-
cops.
And the segways hadn't been invented yet, but I picture them on
And then
segways.
he realizes that he's not very good at running on two human legs.
So he panics.
And he begins to morph. So do mall cops actually have guns in the 90s?
No.
They shouldn't.
Well, these do. Axe is rapidly transforming back into an Andalite as these mall cops are chasing him. And Jake and Marco begin chasing after Axe and the cops.
And like they do the whole thing where he's running through the mall and it's so crowded. And there's this little detail where it's like a woman stepped out of the body shop holding a bag full of colorful jars. Axe plowed into her. The bag went flying.
The number of people who have now been exposed to morphing has gone up like exponentially in the first third of this book.
And
they're associating Jake and Marco with this scene because they're chasing after Axe, and they're screaming after him too, right?
Yeah, it's not keeping a low profile at all. They're basically associating themselves with this Andalite.
Yeah. Axe now goes back to all fours while running.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, thank God. His meant-to-be state. Yes.
He was slowing down as his human legs began to change. The knees were reversing direction.
Mm-hmm.
His spine elongated into beginnings of a tail.
People were screaming and running and dropping their bags as they caught a glimpse of the nightmare creature Axe had become.
And then one of the mall cops, in an odd, frightened whisper, says, Andalite.
Right.
And then the controller cop draws his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
it.
don't know why
That's the
this
smoking mall cop gun.
I don't know why this mall cop had a gun.
Because he's a controller.
Yeah, maybe he brought it from home.
This is personal
which
gun.
is a scary thought. Yeah.
I like to think here Axe cuts the mall cop's hand off, but I think he actually just cuts his hand and he disarms
Makes him drop the gun, yeah.
Yeah.
And then apparently they've alerted the real police, who are concerned enough about a report that initially was just, there's a loose, crazy child, to have several squad cars en route arriving at the exit of the mall to stop them.
This is a level of cop response I've never witnessed. So they run out of the mall, through a parking lot, into a grocery store.
That's where they decide it makes the most sense to go for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
So they go into a grocery store and barricade
this is my
themselves
favorite part. This is so good.
Into
yeah, that's right. They take a second to put up a Home Alone style trap with the
shopping
carts as a
and
barricade.
then a little kid
Here upon this grocery store, we will build a barricade.
A little kid sees Axe and goes, "It's a monster! Mommy, it's a monster!" And Mom goes, "It's just a pretend monster."
You're pretending right now. Gaslighting her own child.
Just like you have a pretend father.
And then Marco freaks the fuck out and says, "None of this is pretend. There's a bomb in this place."
This is an intimate interaction they're having right now with Axe and Andalite morph, with Marco and it's just so many people have seen them.
And then, the natural conclusion is for Marco to scream in a bomb threat. Usually you call those in. This is what screaming in means, actually.
This is pre-9/11.
Back in the day. Right.
Yeah.
And back in the day, we used to have a sense of community, and you used to run into the place where the bomb thrower was at.
Everybody, there's a bomb!
Not communicating with Jake at all either. Jake goes, "What?" And then Marco keeps screaming, "There's a bomb in the store. Run, everyone out, a bomb." And Jake goes, "What are you doing?"
I'm blowing the place up.
And then Marco points at the lobster tank. A massive teenager-sized lobster.
Yeah, a hot tub.
I like that Jake goes, "Oh no," Jake groaned. And then Marco goes, "Oh yes,
yes. I grinned."
They have no respect for the lobsters. Jake and Marco each grab a lobster, and they toss one to Axe.
They do.
Yeah, they all catch. Yeah.
Pretty disrespectful.
Axe is going to have so much trouble fitting in that tank. That's going to be an absurd
you just
fit.
go as you start to turn into a lobster, right? You cling
It's
onto
also
the edge, and then as your hands become little lobster legs, you just...
It's true.
They're not all getting into the tank physically, are they? Oh,
they
take all their clothes off.
They take all their clothes off and
hide
get
them
into
in the
the
trash
tank.
can.
Right.
With the Radio Shack bag.
And they have to get in the tank first, because once they start morphing, they're not going to be able to get in the tank once they're lobsters. Yeah.
Axe had already begun to morph. Jake and I waited till he had shrunk a little and then hauled him into the tank with us.
BT dubs, though, there's a person who works at that counter.
No, they're running from the bomb threat.
I mean, they're running from the bomb threat, but they haven't heard it yet. It's being hand-delivered
Marco
to them.
just yelled, "There's a bomb." He's like, look at me. Don't worry about me getting in your tank. There's a bomb.
Don't worry about me stripping naked right now.
Do I want to flag
There's
this?
a bomb.
Do
right.
they come back for the Radio Shack bag?
They do, yes.
Okay.
They have to,
They mention
because
it.
otherwise the whole thing is...
They mentioned that
and
apparently
do.
they did not empty the trash tonight, I guess.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Or search
makes
the
no
trash.
sense. Or search the trash. Like, the cops would have searched the trash, especially if they're looking for freaking... there's been a clue at every crime scene that the Andalite bandits have been at, which has been clothes left behind.
Yeah.
Like, in book 4,
Good
they
point.
morph into the ocean and swim away as fish. I just think you gotta be
They're moving
looking for
too
these
fast
kids'
in this
clothes.
book, Chris. Keep up.
Yeah, I'm saying...
So we have to jump into this body horror that starts
We're
here.
lobsters
Got it.
now.
This
Because
is so bad.
Axe
The
was already
details
hard
were
like
so-
armor. His arms had begun to split open and swell. And that's just
Oh
the
my
beginning.
God.
It just keeps
Oh my...
We get Jake's face seem to open up, to split open into a complex mess of valves.
Marco loses his mouth.
And then I had the terrifying sensation of knowing that all the bones inside my body were dissolving as a hard fingernail-like crust covered me all over.
That is a nightmare.
And then
That
the
is,
beginning of this
so
next
bad.
chapter is just horror. There's no other way to describe it. There's no other genre this would belong in.
Yeah, Marco cuts in with his narration. I think I might have just started screaming and never stopped, but I no longer had a mouth or throat or vocal cords capable of making sounds. I had 4 sets of legs. I had 2 huge pincers. I could see them, kind of. They were a fractured image in my lobster eyes. I couldn't see much of the rest of me, but I could see other lobsters in the water. I was very frightened. He talks about how the eyes saw colors he had never experienced
Yeah,
before.
that's wild.
He could see his pincers out in front of him. He could see his antennae. He could,
His
behind
humps
him.
and
He could
bumps.
see his humps and bumps.
My lovely
I
lady
love it.
lumps.
Oh, did we
Yes,
hit
one
swimmerettes, which I had never heard of?
I
I
never
could not
heard
look
of,
down
yeah.
and see my belly or the hairy swimmerettes scurrying away back beneath my tail. I could not see my 8 spider-like legs, but I could feel as they propelled me suddenly, scrabbling along the glass bottom of the tank.
Possible verb
Which,
of the
by the
book.
way, they were. I think it is verb of the book.
Scrabbling's good.
100%. Scrabbling is really good because you can use it in this context and when you're playing Scrabble.
Which they'll do as lobsters.
In book 6,
yeah.
right. But the glass bottom of the tank concerns me because a moment of fucking go, they were just standing
on
on
it.
that thing.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Jake, I called out. Yeah, I'm here, he said. He sounded shaky, which was fine because I was on the verge of crying. If lobsters could cry. They can find each other because they don't have rubber bands on their claws.
Right, because
But-
rubber bands aren't apart. Take it away, Ed.
If Axe can morph clothes, couldn't they? And they can morph back into tights? I feel like rubber bands would fall into that category of something.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% correct.
Maybe
It's like
only
right
if
on
you
the-
focus on it, though. Or maybe they would have had to already have rubber bands on their hands when they morphed into wolves.
Yeah.
Well, but Axe is recalling clothes from somewhere else.
Yeah,
Like,
that's.
he's
I don't know
worked
how
it in
that's
the
working. So they decide that they just need to hang out, right? Axe tells them they've been in there like 10 minutes, and they're like, "We just need to hang out and wait for like all the cops to leave. We're not gonna know
Right.
when they left, so we're just gonna have to wait as long as we can, and then morph back."
Which will
Here's
take
the-
hours, I think.
That's what I think too, because we had bomb threats at our school.
Yeah.
They marched us out into the cold and we stood there.
It's true.
But
Yeah.
they're not searching the trash cans in this search. So maybe they're in and out in 10 minutes. So an hour passes.
Axe really likes the claws.
Yes.
Axe
He
gets
does.
into the claws of the morph. He's all like, these claws are most excellent. And then eventually, yeah, they feel unsettled by something.
There's a strange disturbance in the water. Something large had splashed in. I sense something above me. And then before Marco knows what's happening, he's suddenly rising through the water and he's been lifted out of the tank.
Yeah, and he can sense that he's not in the water, but he can't see yet. So he knows that he's in air. He knows that there's no resistance on his body. And he feels rubber bands going onto his claws, but he can't see any of this again. And luckily, they all get picked by the same customer.
That's true, because then they get dropped into some ice, and they have not figured out what's happened yet, but they're about to.
They're about to, yeah. And speaking of
They
which,
get
the
really
ice seem to be
Yeah.
sleepy. Or not exactly sleepy, just slow, sluggish. And honestly, after reading To Build a Fire in middle school where he dies freezing to death, I'm like, that's how I want to go. It sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds real peaceful.
They only have 7 minutes left in their morph.
Yeah,
Yeah,
out
they're
of
really running out of
nowhere,
time.
Axe cuts in and is like, "Oh, hey guys, by the way, we only
Sorry,
have
I
7
know I had
minutes
one
left."
job. Yeah.
And they're like, "All right, we got taken off the ice, so at least that's nice. Time to morph." Except that as Marco goes to morph, he's suddenly got a strange sensation, some pressure pressing on him and taking the rubber bands off, and maybe like he's being lifted, and then a warmth billowing up like
Yeah, something
Steam.
steamy. They basically morph right before they get dropped into a boiling pot. As I
Well-
recall, Marco grabs the side of the pot with his claw
he
to
does.
keep himself
In
from
his
boiling.
horror, and perhaps because he was screaming in his heart, or perhaps because this entire third of the book seems obsessed with mouths, the first thing to morph back on his little lobster body is his tiny human mouth, but not the vocal cords to go with it, so he still can't scream. But apparently, the woman holding this lobster saw the lips appear
Yikes on bikes,
on the
dude.
lobster.
I would be out of there in a minute. I'd be like turning around and running out of the house. I could not handle that.
Screams, drops him. She falls down. He grabs the edge of the pot and is slowly morphing back. By the time he's baby-sized, he's on his back on the stovetop, and then as it gets to be toddler-sized, he rolls off onto the floor. He's still covered in an exoskeleton and is starting to feel his spine return.
Yeah, he's like a crusty toddler.
It's what he says. Yeah, it's so bad.
The antenna sucked back into my forehead. And grinding sounds as my spine reappeared. Oh.
I was one nasty looking kid with 8 legs growing from my stomach and chest. Oh,
and the woman is just screaming, and rightfully
She's freaking out.
Rightfully so.
And Marco, in describing this to us, takes it in a funny direction, which is to say, my legs were back, I stood up, I looked around and saw a woman, sort of pretty, except for the fact that her eyes were wide with terror and she was screaming, which...
It's good to know that doesn't do it for him.
Yeah, it's nice to know. It's somewhat relaxing, but that's a low bar.
Yeah.
So she screams some more. They glance over and realize that they've been packed into an ice box.
Jake is morphing back. He's mostly human. Axe is almost all the way back to Andalite.
Yeah.
The woman does not like them any better now than she did when they were lobsters.
And Marco watched as Axe eliminated the last traces of crustacean.
It's a good phrase.
Yeah.
It's a wild phrase. Yeah. I say it every time I eat crabs. But moving on.
So they're in this woman's kitchen, and they're trying to start trying to calm her down. She says, you, 4 times. Lobsters!
Marco says,
yeah, it's slightly weird, I'll admit,
Yep.
Marco said. Yeah.
And then Jake, who has had practice with before, he goes, but it's okay. It's just a dream.
That's what I tell myself all the time, baby. It stopped working for me. I hope it'll help you. And then Jake comes back in with it and says, it could get you in trouble with certain people.
If you tell anyone about this, you can't tell anyone about this. It's simply a dream. Don't go telling people about this.
And that's like so threatening.
Yes. Yeah. People will just think you're crazy, he says.
They'll think you're just totally off your shit.
That one's probably true. But it could get you in trouble with certain people is very terrifying.
Yes,
to know that there's
of this-
apparently some sort of cabal that knows about these lobster boys.
Yeah. Lobster boys. There were lobster boys in my kitchen.
Lobster boys.
And
She probably
Axe,
won't even remember the Andalite after the lobster boys.
because she nods with extreme conviction. What would they do if she was a controller?
They'd be screwed. Absolutely screwed.
Marco, this has been a transformative experience for him. Before they leave, they all head out the door. Axe morphs back into human.
They look over into the ice and notice that there were 3 other
Right,
lobsters
it was dinner
that
for
weren't
6.
them.
Yeah.
It was dinner for 6, and they had basically ruined the whole thing.
Ma'am, I ask, do us a favor. Would you please take those other guys down to the beach and let them go, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, he's becoming a good little vegan.
Thanks for listening to Anadorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon.